Everdark, Episode 88, After. Last on Everdark, Christian stole away to meet with his blood brother, Elgar. His intention was to protect Balthazar's good heart from assisting Elgar before he knew if Elgar was good or bad. But in the end, it is Christian who begs Balthazar to help the starving fledgling. Balthazar stared at the dirty, filthy, really, man that looked more like a skeleton than a human being. In fact, there was a skull beside him. Why did he have that? But then Christian's face filled up his field of vision, and there was such anguish there.
Balthazar, please, help him,
Christian pleaded. But stranger, fine. But you are going to go with Arceus while I deal with this, Balthazar said. Christian opened his mouth to argue. He didn't need to read minds to know that's what was going to happen. Non-negotiable. Christian's mouth snapped shut, and he nodded. No, I. Good. Go, now. Balthazar pointed towards where the confessor stood, a few feet away, arms crossed over his massive chest, hands hidden by his formal robes. Christian cast one glance back at Elgar, who remained huddled by his pet's skull on the fountain. Then he shuffled over to Arceus, who put a hand on his shoulder and led him away. Fiona remained. She came up behind him.
Do you need assistance?
She asked. I'm not sure, to be honest. He sighed.
He needs to be fed. He needs more blood than Seer.
Fiona frowned. And he's more likely to lose control than her as well, Balthazar said. It was not a guess. He could feel the thin edge of control that Elgar had on himself. Madness danced with him. He is Eiros's fledgling. My fledgling. But I feel only Christian in my heart. Yet Elgar was his responsibility. And Christian would kill him if something bad happened to this strong yet fragile vampire. Keep near, Fiona. I might need you to transport him somewhere quick, where he can't hurt anyone, Balthazar requested. She gave a brief nod and stepped back again. Near enough to help, but not to take any attention. For a moment he realized that the two of them were working together rather well. When her forgotten fledglings pop out of the woodwork, I suppose I will have to assist as well. He glided nearer to Elgar, who was stroking his pet skull and murmuring soothing words to himself. A prick of guilt went through him. Elgar was clearly suffering. This was his fledgling. Christian was his fledgling, but also more. Maybe that should be the difference he held. Not fledgling or no, but lover or friend. He cleared his throat. Elgar shifted. He was intensely aware of Balthazar, but it was almost as if he wasn't quite sure if Balthazar was real. Who's your friend? Balthazar asked, even as the answer popped into his head. Oh, yes, you. Elgar's voice was soft, ghost-like. I still can't quite let you go. Balthazar stared at the skull with fangs. It was missing the lower jaw, but he amused himself in thinking the skull was handsome. Eiros in the past was handsome, maybe more handsome than he was now. It was bizarre to think that had been him. He reached up and touched his cheek, feeling the bone beneath the skin, and swallowed. That had been him. Are you going to be speaking to my skull? Like in Hamlet? Balthazar smiled mirthlessly. Alas, poor Eiros. I knew him as a fellow of infinite jest, of most excellent fancy. He hath borne me on his back 1,000 times, and now, how abhorred in my imagination it is. It was only after he proudly quoted Shakespeare from memory that he realized Elgar had no idea what he was talking about. Shakespeare had not been around when Elgar went into the dirt. How old was he? How long ago was the war? Elgar was a Teuton name, so far older than Balthazar likely was now. When had the Teutons been around? Weren't there individual tribes or something? Maybe they weren't even called Teutons. He shook himself as he realized something else. You speak English brilliantly, but then so did Damon, and it wasn't his mother tongue, Balthazar remarked. It's the same way you can speak any language. You learn it by... Elgar touched his pale as marble temple. That allowed him to see Elgar's face as he lifted his head at the same time. black hair that hung down in waves to his shoulders. It obviously had stopped growing at one point. Otherwise, he'd have hair longer than Rapunzel's. That thought almost made Balthazar want to laugh, but he knew it was nervous laughter and inappropriate. He bit his inner cheek to stop it. Languages are just ways of relaying our thoughts, Elgar continued. In that way, language differences are not real in any sense, not for us, your children. I suppose you're right. I mean, of course, you're right. I just hadn't thought of it that way. Balthazar had just accepted his language skills. That he could learn a language in moments as if he was a natural had just seemed right. Now he realized the source of it. Hadn't he teased Charlie for his inability to do the same thing? Have you really thought of yourself as ordinary all this time? Just one of us? Elgar asked. Balthazar opened his mouth to say something pithy, but stopped himself again. I don't think those that know me would say I thought ill of myself. But yes, I thought of myself. Still think of myself actually to be just like everyone else. I suppose that comes from. He thought of Roan then, of course. If there was anyone who could make him feel like an insect, it was his old master. Well, I don't have all the answers. I imagine an immortal would have those. Lots of them, anyways. A small smile graced Elgar's thin lips. He kept staring at that face, willing to remember something, but he didn't. Elgar was a stranger to him. Was he really Eiros if he couldn't remember one of his own fledglings? A fledgling that had loved him enough to burrow with his skull into the earth and stay there until he called. You never thought you knew everything. You were always very aware of what you didn't know. That's why you tried to turn as many of the great thinkers of the age that you could. Knowledge was power. Another small smile. Christian has a very scientific mind. Yes. Balthazar shifted uncomfortably. You don't like me speaking of him. I understand. He's yours. You want to keep him safe in word and deed. Even my speaking of him is dangerous in your view, Elgar murmured, feeling Christian's disapproval. And it wasn't his imagination. He was feeling it. Balthazar sighed. Interrogating Elgar was not what he should have been doing. Tell me what you need. How can I help you? Balthazar asked, nose wrinkling slightly as he smelled the musty earth scent rising up from his winding sheet, or whatever he was wearing. I need. Elgar licked his dry, cracked lips. Your blood. I know you won't give me that. You're envisioning me ripping out your throat. I wouldn't. I would never. Elgar swallowed. But you wouldn't let a friend do that. You do not even know me. So something else will have to be done. Yes, absolutely. Christian, would you have wanted me to feed him? No, I don't think so. He really wasn't asking Christian. He was actually pretty sure that Christian would have told him to do it, even if it hurt Christian to see it. But no, he wasn't doing it. He did not wish to. So what is the alternative? He asked when Elgar tried to stand but sank back down almost immediately. There is a device down in the dungeon of the spire that will help me. It needs 5 humans to fuel it, Elgar said after long moments of breathing hard. The dungeon, where my favorite person is. A niggling thought came into his head. Is Elgar working for Cully and wants him to get into the dungeon to release Caemorn or give him a second death? But one sweep of Elgar's mind told him no. The vampire had truly dragged himself out of the earth at Balthazar's call. The yearning for him staggered him a bit. He frowned. He knew that one couldn't help everyone, that one had to armor oneself to the emotional turmoil turning away from someone, but Elgar was his fledgling, not his lover, his fledgling, whether he remembered him or not. I've been kinder to Elena, who betrayed me, than this vampire who went into hibernation because I died. I can arrange for both. Balthazar turned to Fiona. She came to attention. He sent to her mind the locations and descriptions of 5 more of the former vampires. He assumed that these 5 would not survive, much like the ones that Seer drained. Luckily, there were plenty of useless former vampires to sacrifice. Was this going to be a thing from now on? Got it? She nodded.
I'll bring them to the dungeon. Perhaps I should teleport Elgar and you as well.
He tipped his head towards the still figure on the fountain. Balthazar turned back. Elgar's breathing was heavy and his shoulders slumped. Exhaustion pulled at him as well as that belly as an empty sack experience. So getting Elgar to the dungeon as fast as possible would be a good idea. Yet he found himself saying, "No, I'll handle it. You get the others as quickly as you can." She nodded and disappeared. "I will get up in a moment. I will be ready to move," Elgar said through gasps. "No, you won't. You cannot even get up off that fountain." Balthazar walked over to the vampire. "But I need to Oh." Balthazar picked Elgar up. He weighed practically nothing. A bag of bones. He shook that image away. The skull, his skull, was enough. Balthazar turned and started to carry him to the spire. "No, wait!" Elgar cried. He had been holding himself very still, as if fearful of touching Balthazar too much, which might cause Balthazar to drop him or something. "What?" Elgar reached back towards the skull. Balthazar tipped his head back and sighed. "You know, I am going to think that you're disappointed with me, that you keep wanting that skull," Balthazar said crossly. "Forgive me, master, but I could not just leave. "I know," Balthazar grimaced. He turned back and leaned down so that Elgar could grab the skull, which he did, and cradled it against his chest. "Besides, we will need this to help me," Elgar said as Balthazar turned back to the spire. Balthazar frowned. How? There was a soft gush of surprised laughter from Elgar. When he saw Balthazar's deepening frown, he said, You're serious? You don't know? I assure you that I have no idea what you're talking about, let alone how my skull can assist. It seems to me that draining 5 people will do far more than old bones will to help you," Balthazar said as he reached the dual high-arched doors of the spire. He was about to shoulder it open, when 2 Eiros vampires snapped to it and opened it for him. They weren't from his house. He thought he vaguely knew them from some of the larger meets the Eiros houses would have. Balthazar hoped he hid his surprise at their actions. After all, he was carrying Elgar. It could have been that they saw his arms were full and helped. But vampires weren't exactly known to be helpful when they didn't have to be, and he was an exile, so they'd been programmed not to help him. Yet they had. He was sure he didn't hide his shock when they bowed to him, though. Now, that action could not be explained away so easily. He quickly passed inside. "You are surprised that they worship you?" Elgar's voice was low, so that the vampires likely hadn't heard. "Worship? Ha ha! You... Oh, wait, you're serious. I did summon them as Eiros. They know who I am, so of course they're trying to brown-nose me." Balthazar lifted his chin up proudly. "Brown-nose? No, it is real worship. You come from another time, Elgar, and clearly you are very fond of me, which blinds you to the reality that most people just want things from me." Balthazar was surprised how weary he sounded at that. He shouldn't be disappointed. He expected nothing less from people, so why did it displease him now? Had he expected for things to be different? Had he expected worship, like Elgar seemed to think he was owned? "And yet, you are unnerved." "What? No, just..." Was he unnerved? A little. In some ways, he didn't want to be treated differently. He wanted to be a part of things. Perhaps a little. "You truly do think you are one of us?" Elgar looked thoughtful. He tugged at his lower lip. "Well then, the use of your skull with the bowl will show you how extraordinary you are." "That doesn't make me feel happy somehow." Balthazar was frowning again. "Everything about you is powerful, Balthazar. Even vampire bones have magical properties." "Magical?" Balthazar scoffed and stopped himself. "I'm sorry, but when you say magic, I suppose it is. We have not figured out how our gifts actually work, so it is magic." Elgar was actually smiling. "You always wanted logic and method applied to everything. No superstition. Elgar coughed, as clearly just raising his voice a little was too much for him. Balthazar picked up the pace. They had reached the dungeon door. There were no vampires to help open it, at least not at first. As he tried to shoulder it open, there was a call from behind him.
Balthazar, let us help you.
It was Seer. Seer! Elgar gasped. He turned his head towards her. She was bathed and dressed in a rather magnificent white dress with feathers and waterfalls of silk. A simple length of silk was bound over her missing eyes. But she didn't need Sophia to lead her. Sophia, now in a matching dress, which made her look a bit like Seer's mini-me, skipped alongside her mistress.
Elgar, oh dear, poor thing.
Seer came directly over and ran her hands through her hair. You know him, and why did that make this seem much more real than before?
Of course he's your second.
Seer enthused as she petted the bony vampire. My what now? He doesn't know. Not any of it, does he? Elgar pushed weakly up into her hands.
No, dear, he's had a hard time of it, but things are turning around.
She said.
You are taking him to the bowl?
Why do I think this isn't just a bowl? Like the skull isn't just a skull? Balthazar lifted an eyebrow. She laughed.
Yes, indeed. But where is Christian? Christian needs to be here and see all of this. He'll be fascinated.
If this bowl involves draining 5 people's blood into it, I don't know how he will take it. People of this age, really of any age, would view this as a little barbaric. Balthazar searched for that last word and was disappointed in it. Wasn't quite right.
Don't be silly, dearest Eros. It will help him.
Seer patted his arm. Like that mirror room did? Balthazar had a bone to pick with her about that.
Yes, in a way.
Another pat.
That did help him, even though it was upsetting. He had to see the truth. He wasn't responsible. He was preyed upon. That doesn't make him a victim for the rest of his existence, but it was something that needed to be clarified for him. Don't you think so?
She cocked her head to the side, regarding him with a slight smile on her lips. Balthazar's mouth opened and shut like a goldfish's. She was right, but she was also wrong. She should have warned him. He shouldn't have been there, but he knew it wouldn't have had the same effect on Christian if any of that had been true. Seer smiled one last time at him and leaned down to her fledgling.
Sophia, darling, please go get Christian.
No need. I can call him. Balthazar sent a command to Arceus and his fledgling.
Excellent, Eros.
He was patted again.
Fluffy bunny!
Sophia said to him. What? You saw a fluffy bunny here? Balthazar did not recall any prey animal like that in the Everdark, unless a vampire had perversely bought one here.
No, my kitties! One will be named Fluffy and the other Bunny.
Sophia explained. He blinked. I hoped you had forgotten about that.
Oh, I wouldn't do that,
She assured him. No, of course you wouldn't. Balthazar sighed and rolled his eyes.
Or what about...
He pressed his fingers to Sophia's lips. Surprise me. Her eyes brightened.
A surprise?
Yes, about the names, not the number of cats. He narrowed his eyes at her. We agreed to 2.
2 for me.
No, 2 in total. His gaze was now quite stern.
But Christian wants at least 1.
She fluttered her eyes at him. Christian wouldn't do that to me, Balthazar told her.
What wouldn't I do to you?
Christian called as he walked into the spire with Arceus in tow. Arceus was behind him not because he wasn't eager to see what was happening, but because Christian was moving so very fast.
Because if Sophia says I would, then...
You won't. You wouldn't. Sophia is teasing, Balthazar said the last, looking down at Sophia's upturned cherubic face. Aren't you? She just smiled and swung herself from side to side as was her wont.
Elgar, are you all right? Of course you're not.
Christian said, fussing at the shroud around the other fledgling. I am fine, Elgar amended. I will be. With a fond smile, he said to Balthazar, You still don't like cats? I didn't before. Balthazar's eyebrows rose up. A connection with my past self. Interesting. Arceus let out a deep rumble.
That would be fitting. It has always been a bone-deep aversion.
I always thought your aversion to them was because you'd had one, loved it, and then it died. There are no vampire cats, Elgar admitted weakly.
Vampire cats?
Christian looked thoughtful.
Humanity is the only species that our gifts work on. On this planet, in any event.
Seer answered.
But come, Elgar is suffering and there is no need.
What can help him besides blood?
Christian looked between the three of them. Something undoubtedly horrible and terrifying, Balthazar murmured.
It would be agonizing for him to simply drink his way back to health. He'd go mad well before then. I was at least fed some and am an immortal, so I am different. He has had nothing, shutting his body down until now.
Seer explained.
So we need to do something more drastic.
She opened the door to the dungeon. The now familiar mouldy, earthy scent rose up. It reminded him of Elgar's current scent, but there was another smell now too. A familiar one. But it didn't make his stomach rumble with hunger. It was somehow sickening. Blood. Blood and magic. He carried Elgar down the stairs with Christian beside him, constantly checking to make sure Elgar wasn't jostled too much. Christian understands the difference between fledgling and lover. Of course, he's completely ahead of the curve on most things. When they reached the bottom, Balthazar wasn't sure what he expected to see. Fiona, with 5 former vampires standing there with glazed unknowing in their eyes. He hadn't noticed any doors to any other rooms, let alone some bowl down there. But the moment they came down the last step, he saw Caemorn at the front of the bars, staring to his left. There was a door. It had seemed like a decorative panel of stone, but it was a door. Christian skirted around and looked inside. He stopped and cocked his head to the side. Balthazar moved behind him and looked over his shoulder. Through the door was a vaulted stone chamber. It was empty, except for what looked like a huge brass bowl, about 6 feet in diameter and just as deep, sat on a pedestal in the exact center. There were 5 leaves that jutted out from the edge. At least, they were shaped like leaves, but were more like knives with channels that ran from the tips to the bases that then drained into the bowl inside. Fiona and the 5 former vampires were already in there. She had positioned each of the former vampires in front of each of the leaves. He met her gaze. Her mouth opened and shut a moment before she managed to say,
I just knew.
Wyvern, of course you knew. You had to do this for your second when her fledgling passed and she hibernated to exist beyond the pain for a time.
Seer said. Wyvern? Elgar cocked his head to see Fiona. The 3 of you are here. And King Damon, are you all back? I am wondering if any of us ever really left, Balthazar murmured.
Now, you should set Elgar and the skull into the bowl,
Seer instructed. Balthazar hesitated only a moment before carrying Elgar inside the room and did as she said. Elgar seemed so small that he was practically swallowed by the bowl. Elgar curled down there, holding on to his skull as if it were a sacred object. Balthazar stepped back. He nearly bumped into Christian, who was practically on his heels. He had expected the young man to retreat when he saw what was clearly some kind of terrible sacrificial device. But Christian was touching it and murmuring things.
It's cold. Why is it cold? And why?
Balthazar grasped his shoulders and pulled Christian away from the thing.
I'll explain everything later. But though I have no doubt that Balthazar picked worthy sacrifices, there's no need for them to suffer any longer than necessary. Balthazar, if you would.
Seer nodded her head towards the former vampires that all stood facing the leaf blades. She wanted him to order them to step forward, so that the leaf blades pierced their flesh.
Will you be all right seeing so much blood, Lady Seer?
Arceus asked gently. She smiled fondly at the confessor.
Yes, I will be fine, though I will need to feed in another hour or so.
Arceus bowed his head respectfully. Sophia took her mistress's hand. All right, let's get this party started, Balthazar breathed. He took in a breath and willed the form of vampires to simply step forward and to not stop, even as the leaf blades sliced into their stomachs. Blood should have sprayed out, spilled on the floor, dripped down their fronts at least, but it did not. Instead, a stream of blood flowed along the veins of the leaves and started to fill the bowl, and filled and filled. It should have taken a long time. Not all the blood should have left them, but it did. Bare husks were left behind that turned to dust and collapsed to the floor in piles of ash. The bowl, though, was full, and with it, Elgar and the skull were completely submerged in a shimmering pool of crimson.
This shouldn't be possible.
Christian murmured.
What happens next?
We wait.
Seer answered.
But Elgar is worth waiting for. He will be especially useful for what is to come.
The war with Calais? Balthazar asked, still unable to pull his eyes away from the still bowl.
No.
Seer said, and appeared amused.
After.
Arceus's brow furrowed.
What happens after?
Elgar has the unique gift of suggestion. He can whisper in one ear and infect a city, a nation. People aren't directly controlled, but they follow that suggestion no matter what.
Seer was carding her fingers through Sophia's curls.
It will be very, very useful.
For what?
Christian repeated the other's question. Balthazar knew, and he didn't know if it was excitement or fear he felt as he said, "For when Damon takes over the world." Join us next time for episode 89, Older Brother.
If you want to support this podcast and get the unedited episodes, we actually have something better than a Patreon. I have my own serial subscription website, wraithrain.com. It's an old-fashioned paywall site, just like Netflix or Crunchyroll. With a membership, you do get the uncut versions of Everdark with no intros, outros, or edited parts. Just the chapters as they were meant to be heard before we've had to make it all Disney safe. If this sounds interesting to you, try us out for a month. The link to sign up is in the notes. The most you'll pay is $9.95 a month, and you'll be directly supporting us, real people, not big corporations like Amazon or Netflix, not content created with AI. Wraith Rain is a small team of actual humans doing the best we can to transport you with romantic action and adventure stories. We really thank you for your support.
Everdark, episode 89, Older Brother. Last on Everdark, Balthazar carries Elgar to a mysterious bowl where his fledgling is submerged in blood in order to restore him. We now turn back to Julian and Damon. Julian shifted from foot to foot outside the doors of Ravenscroft Manor. He got up on his toes to catch sight of the long line of graceful black Mercedes SUVs that were taking Christian, Balthazar, and their other friends from the Calais Gate to Solace. Back here. Damon put a gentle hand on Julian's shoulder and let out a small chuckle at his impatience. One would think you had not seen Christian in years. It has only been a few hours, Damon teased.
Yeah, but there are tons of things I want to tell him about what's happened since then, so it feels like forever.
Julian did blush, though. Would he tell Christian about what happened with the tentacles? He wasn't sure yet, though he knew that Christian would hear about it. Iros vampires were really gossipy. He supposed that came from the mind-reading and controlling parts of their personalities. No secrets among Iros that were not eagerly sought out. Julian went on.
Christian and I have this company where we go out and report on the mysterious, magical, or monstrous of the world. I don't feel like a thing is real until I've talked to him about it. Then whatever has happened makes sense in a way that it didn't before to me. It's almost like...
Julian helplessly lifted his arms to his sides.
Well, Christian is an integral way for me to process the world.
Damon listened in that intense way of his, which Julian knew meant he wasn't only hearing what Julian was saying, but was picking up memories, feelings, and more from his mind about him and Christian. He was a little surprised that this didn't bother him. Damon was, in essence, rifling through the most intimate parts of himself in order to understand him. And maybe that's why it didn't bother him. Because Damon was doing it to understand. It wasn't just idle interest, or a need to ferret out every secret, which he thought some of the Iros had to do. It was to understand him, and care for him better. He felt sort of honored that Damon would want to do this for him. Finally, Damon nodded. I think that Christian will have much to tell you as well. Balthazar has insisted I not. Damon's face scrunched as if he couldn't quite believe he was having to say the next word. Peek into his mind or anyone else's in the vehicles. Julian let out a laugh. It caused the night insects to quiet their chirrings as they were disturbed by this bright sound.
He wants to surprise you.
Julian shook his head in amusement.
I imagine it's hard to surprise him, so he must value it when it happens.
Damon frowned. Iros does not like surprises at all. He has always wanted to know. Now he wishes me not to, and yet you think this is a good thing.
It must be a good surprise, Damon. He wouldn't hide something from you that was bad. He'd tell you right away, and then hide behind your skirts.
Julian smirked.
I think we all would.
Damon's forehead bunched. I wear no skirts. I have on pants. Then the Vampire King laughed, totally amused by his own joke.
Now that I understand you a little better, these moments where you claim not to understand something are going to become less and less believable.
Julian shook his head, though he was smiling. Damon slipped an arm over his shoulders and pulled him near. There are many things I do not understand. One may know facts. One may even know customs, but there is a gap that needs to be bridged. Something that requires more familiarity.
Well, you're picking things up so fast.
Julian praised him. I must understand this world if I am to rule it, Damon answered. Julian's eyes widened, even as his mouth opened to ask what Damon meant by that. Surely Damon couldn't mean what he had said so flatly. One couldn't just determine to rule the world and act like it would happen, could one? And then Julian remembered what Damon had done in Solace. But that was turning vampires mortal again. That wouldn't work against humans with their weapons. But though he had 1,000 questions, and maybe even more concerns, he didn't get to ask them. As the gates to the Ravenscroft estate opened, and the line of SUVs pulled in, and the lead car drove up to them. The SUV's windows were all tinted so dark as to be impossible to see inside. Julian guessed that meant a vampire could travel in these during the day, though it would seem an awfully fragile shell to be in when sunlight was just inches or less away. The back passenger door to the first SUV flew open, and Christian got out. He was grinning from ear to ear. Julian blinked. Of all the expressions on his best friend's face, this one of uncomplicated joy was rarest. It wasn't just that Christian didn't feel it often, but it was something he did not show to others. But this burst of emotion was clear for all to see. Christian immediately came to him and hugged him tightly.
I've got so much to tell you.
Christian's voice was muffled as he spoke against Julian's shoulder.
Whoa, now you got me all excited here.
Julian laughed. No telling, Christian. Balthazar's voice came from the SUV. It's a surprise for Damon. The Vampire King's eyebrows rose. You are making me all excited here too, Iros. Christian broke off the hug to grasp Damon's nearest arm, which was also rare. Christian actually wanting to touch someone? Julian tried to think of the times that Christian had touched Damon. They were rare indeed. The Vampire King clearly realized how momentous this was too, and he gently caressed Christian's cheek, a sign of infinite affection. Christian ducked his head.
I hope you like this. No, I know you will.
Christian said softly to Damon, more eyebrow-raising. I am all agog. Please, do not let this painful expectation continue, Iros. Hold on a moment. There's shyness involved here, Balthazar called back, and then clearly speaking to someone else in the vehicle. You must get out first. I want him to see you. No, it doesn't matter what my position is. I want this. Now, go on. Julian peered into the darkness of the SUV interior, but though his night vision made the low light inside as bright as the sun, he only saw Balthazar sitting beside a figure that was wrapped in what looked like a black shroud, with a skull on his or her lap. I think we should leave the skull here for now. Balthazar tried to take the skull, which had fangs, from the shrouded figure, but the figure moved it out of Balthazar's grabbing range, drawing it into the folds of material, protesting, "No, master, please. I must keep it. It is a relic." "Yes, but I really don't want Damon to be reminded of death right now," Balthazar pleaded. "He won't be. He will understand," the shrouded figure said. Julian turned toward Christian.
Who is that?
Christian looked up at him, eyes shining.
You know when I wished I had an older brother?
Julian's eyebrows were the ones to climb now.
Yeah, and we talked about how weird that would be, as it would have required your mother to have a child that she hid from you, and yes, I know, but now I have one. More than one, but this is the first one.
Christian told him.
And I thought I had things to tell you.
Julian let out a huff of laughter.
This is beyond me.
Julian glanced up at Damon then. The Vampire King's gaze was riveted to the open door. Slowly, Damon approached it. He still thought of vehicles akin to tombs, so Julian wasn't altogether sure if it was the vehicle or what was inside that was making him so careful. Could it be? Damon murmured. Could it? The shrouded figure finally emerged from the SUV. Their face was covered up with the shroud. Damon halted a few feet away. His red eyes glowed. His nostrils flared. He was drawing in this being's scent, which was rather rank. "Take off the hood, for goodness sake," Balthazar was saying to the figure as he got out of the vehicle himself. "I'm going to burn that as soon as you get in the bath. It's completely unsalvageable. And, what are you doing now?" The figure had dropped to his knees and was prostrating himself before Damon. Balthazar blinked down at him, and then his gaze rose to Damon. "Should we be bowing? I'm a little tired to bow, but I will, if you would like," Balthazar said, eyes clearly pleading that he didn't want to get the knees of his pants filthy. Damon smiled at him. "No, indeed. Stay standing." He went over to Balthazar, cupped his face, and kissed his forehead in friendly fashion. "It is good to have you back at my side, and you have brought me someone. Someone I think I know, but it would be too good a thing to hope for." He looked down at the still kneeling figure. "Please, get up, little one." "I am unworthy to be standing in your presence," the figure said, forehead still pressed to the ground. "That could never be true, Elgar. It is you, isn't it? My king." Elgar's voice was full of emotion. Damon dropped down and grasped Elgar's biceps. He gently brought the figure to his feet, and then slowly pulled back the hood to reveal a delicate-featured man with a scholar's brow and something almost elfish in his ears and cheekbones. He had long black hair that fell well below his mid-back. "We used the bowl thing in the basement of the spire," Balthazar said, "and my skull. That seemed to work wonders on him. He's only a little thin now, which doesn't show at all the amount of time he hibernated."
Hibernated?
Julian said the word like it had a piquant taste.
He's been hibernating in the ground since the war, when Iros fell.
Christian added.
Oh, wow,
Julian felt lost. "That is good, Iros. I assume that Seer helped?" Damon murmured as he looked down intently into Elgar's face as if he was seeing a ghost.
"I did indeed, my king."
Seer said, as she and Sophia emerged from the second SUV. She looked so much better, and the dress she was wearing made her appear like a queen. She drew in a deep breath of night air.
"Oh, Balthazar, your garden is momentous."
"It's rather nice, yes. Arceus was quite behind the design. Night-blooming plants and plenty of herbs." Balthazar shook himself. "Yes, well, not important, but thank you, Seer."
"I cannot wait to see your home here."
Seer raised her head and appeared to be looking at the house, even though her eyes were bound by a silk band. But Julian had no doubts that she was truly seeing everything.
"I think your kitties will be so happy here, Sophia, with their friends."
The last had her lips curling into a playful smile, which had Balthazar frowning. "I said 2 cats. That's it. 2. Balthazar called out the reminder.
He is so losing this battle.
Julian murmured to Christian. Christian gave him an impish smile.
I want two of my own.
Seer came over and kissed Damon's cheek.
Sophia will show me the garden while you bond. Then we can speak when you are ready.
And I must introduce you to Christian's mummy and daddy.
Sophia said, using those childlike terms that sort of hurt to hear, because they indicated how she had viewed parents when she had been turned. Seer's mouth opened in an O.
Parents, of course. It has been so long since we have had human parents alive who know the truth. They must be extraordinary people.
Where are my parents?
Christian gazed around as if they were hiding someplace.
I want them to meet Elgar too. They slept late because they wanted to be sure to be awake all tonight.
Julian told him.
Don't worry, they'll be able to meet everyone.
Christian relaxed and smiled. Perhaps another drink too, Seer? Balthazar suggested. My acolytes are your acolytes. Seer put a hand on her chest.
Oh, that would be so kind, Balthazar. Thank you.
Sophia, you know where everyone is. I assume you have a bedroom all picked out for Seer. It was clear from Balthazar's tone that he believed his own room would go to her, with Sophia's penchant for picking the absolute best spots.
We're going to share. I cannot be away from my mistress. I will sleep at her feet.
Sophia sounded over the moon as she said this, so Julian just shook his head in amazement. He didn't know if he would be so eager to sleep at Damon's feet. Sleep beside him, yes, but at his feet? Maybe not. That sounds grand. Balthazar sounded thrilled. He had saved his bedroom after all. Julian hid a smirk as Sophia and Seer went off into the manor. He turned to Christian.
It doesn't look like you're going to be sleeping on couches after all. I am a little relieved at that, but there is plenty of room in the manor.
Christian said, then frowned.
Well, sort of. You should have a room in the house and not in the guest cottage.
We do not have enough room, Christian, Balthazar said dryly. We need gracious open spaces. Arceus? He called that over his shoulder at where the confessor was leaving the third SUV. He was assisting Fiona and Lizette out of it.
Yes, Balthazar?
Arceus called back. We need to contact our architect and builder and all that. We need more room. Perhaps not only an extension, but another house entirely. The manor will become a compound. Balthazar looked pleased. Elgar will need his own area. Elgar's silver eyes widened. Oh, no, master. I do not need anything so grand. Just a little space to sleep and a small desk will be sufficient. Balthazar snorted. Shall I make you a cubby beneath the stairs? Elgar did not recognize the Harry Potter reference and instead said, That will be quite sufficient. Nice and snug. Balthazar put a hand up to his forehead. No, Elgar, it will not be. You will have a suite of rooms of your own. For now, you will take Christian's old bedroom as he sleeps with me. Suddenly, as if realizing what he had just said, Balthazar quickly clarified with Christian. You find that suitable, yes? Otherwise, I will find Elgar another room.
That would be wasteful. You're correct that yours is now ours. Besides, it'll keep Elgar near us. I think that's best, don't you?
Christian said again with that surprising eagerness. Elgar brightened, and at the same time looked rather overwhelmed. Julian asked out of the side of his mouth.
So, who is Elgar? He's...
Christian began, but then Damon cut him off. Iros's second, Damon said as he gazed down upon that diffident scholar's face. The whisperer. Damon had been strangely silent as he had gazed upon Elgar. Julian hadn't been jealous. This was not a romantic thing. Damon's expression mirrored his thoughts. Something precious had been restored that he had thought lost, and he seemed sad too, as if Elgar's presence brought to his mind the absence of others. Elgar lowered his head as Damon continued to regard him, looking shy. Julian didn't understand what a second was, let alone his moniker.
Elgar is one of Iros's fledglings. He's like his second in command.
Christian explained, his eyes still glowing.
But another of Iros's fledglings?
Julian's eyebrows were now completely in his hairline.
That's,
He lowered his voice.
You're okay with that? Of course. An older brother, like I said.
Christian enthused. This older brother thing had happened just before Julian's parents had died. While he and Julian had been allowed to go most places they wanted to, there was some, like the Western Woods, or the closed amusement park called Havens Canyon, where they had not been allowed to go, and where the Thorns had not wanted to accompany them. So Christian had wished for an older brother. This older brother would be old enough to take them to these places and others. Somehow Christian had never imagined that such an older brother wouldn't want to hang with them, let alone accompany them on their adventures as chaperone. Instead, this imagined older brother had been incredibly tolerant and loving. Julian hadn't had the heart to remind Christian of the older siblings of their friends, who wouldn't have been caught dead hanging out with a younger sibling. Now it appeared that the long-forgotten dream of an elder sibling had returned, but this time in the form of a fledgling. Christian and Julian, perhaps you would like to take Elgar to his room to get settled in, and perhaps show him how the plumbing all works? Balthazar suggested. Damon and I have to talk. My phone blew up when I got back here, and we are going to be expecting guests. Lots of guests. That is a good idea. Damon gently urged Elgar to him. I wish you to become good friends with Julian. Elgar's silver eyes alighted on Julian, and Julian found himself straightening. Elgar was the last thing like a drill sergeant or anything like that. He seemed diffident, scholarly and gentle, someone who would become lost in a book and not remember to eat. He likely would be the type of older brother who would have no problem accompanying them on their adventures, so long as he could bring something to read. But with one glance, Julian realized he'd been seen. There was a keen and incredible mind behind those eyes, one who understood things and understood him. Elgar might appear dreamy, diffident, and scholarly, but he was so much more than that. But Elgar must have found him not to be wanting, because a smile, so tender and gentle, crossed his features. Oh, my king, he is beautiful, strong and brave, exactly what he should be, Elgar murmured. You honor me beyond words to be with him, but a prince should be served. He should not serve me. Julian went over to Elgar. He reached out to take one of the slender hands, the one not cradling the skull, and linked it with his own.
Elgar, Damon is king, but I'm just...
Julian met Damon's gaze. No, he wasn't just anyone. Even if he didn't feel himself worthy of such accolades yet, he was the fledgling of the Vampire King. So he amended what he was going to say.
I think that part of being a prince means to serve the people that he helps rule.
Very good, fledgling. You do rule them. Damon sent with approval.
Yeah. I'm getting better, I guess, in understanding what my new position is.
Julian agreed. Elgar took Julian's hand while cradling the Scully with the other. It was the first time that Damon had taken notice of it. He frowned. Elgar, may I see that? Damon asked. Elgar handed it out after half a second's hesitation, which was long for him in denying Damon anything. So the skull was very important to him. We really need a box for that, or something. Balthazar's lips flattened.
Whose skull is that?
Julian asked. It's mine. Balthazar sighed. Julian started.
Yours?
Yes. It's magical. But more importantly, Balthazar's eyes slid to Elgar and he looked a little sad. Elgar is not quite ready to give it up. I will never let it go. I will honor it. Keep it safe, Elgar murmured. Julian felt a fragility with Elgar's mind then, and he cast a concerned look at Christian. His best friend's face reflected empathy. Damon held the skull in both hands and gazed into the eye sockets. His expression was blank at first, but his thoughts roiled. His expression hardened. His lips writhed back from his teeth to show his fangs were out. His eyes blazed magma-like. When he spoke, his voice was calm, and yet his tone chilled Julian. I will never allow such a thing to happen again. Those responsible for this war will pay for it. Join us next time for episode 90, New Things.
If you want to support this podcast and get the unedited episodes, we actually have something better than a Patreon. I have my own serial subscription website, wraithrain.com. It's an old-fashioned paywall site, just like Netflix or Crunchyroll. With a membership, you do get the uncut versions of Everdark with no intros, outros, or edited parts. Just the chapters as they were meant to be heard before we've had to make it all Disney safe. If this sounds interesting to you, try us out for a month. The link to sign up is in the notes. The most you'll pay is $9.95 a month, and you'll be directly supporting us, real people, not big corporations like Amazon or Netflix, not content created with AI. Wraith Rain is a small team of actual humans doing the best we can to transport you with romantic action and adventure stories. We really thank you for your support.
Everdark, Episode 90, New Things. Last on Everdark, Christian and Balthazar bring Elgar and Iros's skull home to Ravenscroft Manor. Upon seeing Iros's skull, the war and the losses from it fully come home to Damon, who swears to never let it happen again.
Come on, Elgar. Julian and I will show you to your new room.
Christian reached for Elgar's nearest hand. Elgar looked down at his hand and blinked. He took it carefully and allowed his cool fingers to wrap around Christian's hand. When Christian tried to tug him towards the manor, he resisted though, as he looked longingly towards the skull.
Hold on.
Julian said, evidently seeing the same thing, went over to Damon and touched the skull.
I think Elgar still needs this.
If His Majesty wishes it, then I cede it to him, Elgar cried, but the longing and anxiety in his eyes stated otherwise. Damon's expression softened. Of course, Elgar. Here, I did not mean to take it from you. He handed Iros's skull to Elgar. Elgar took it and held it tightly against his chest. Christian's gaze lifted to Balthazar's face. His master looked strained. This skull was a physical reminder that even vampires could die, but it also showed Elgar's mental fragility. Be careful with Elgar, Christian, Balthazar warned, confirming Christian's thoughts. His body may be restored, but it is clear that his mind is still brittle.
I will. He just needs time to get used to things.
Christian answered. Balthazar smiled and shook his head. I thought you might be jealous or worried about Elgar, but you're his biggest booster.
I don't think your feelings for me are so insubstantial that you would throw me over.
Christian scoffed.
You are, if nothing else, very loyal.
His master's right eyebrow rose. Yes, that is true. Then with an impish smile, he added, You're not jealous at all?
No. I'm excited to have Elgar here. I get to know more about you, and not to mention the world as it was in his time. Aren't you excited about that? You could learn so much from him.
Christian asked.
While Damon tells us much, it's harder to get information from him. He's more secretive about things.
Balthazar blinked. Yes, I suppose that is true. Well, I will look to you to find out things first. Christian smiled.
Afraid that you'll lose your master aura?
Balthazar snorted. As if I could be seen as anything less than awesome.
You're so modest.
Christian lifted an eyebrow. Modesty is underrated. I am a truth-teller. With a serious look, Balthazar added, Now be careful. Reach for me if you need anything at all. Christian nodded, and then turned back to Elgar, whose gaze was flickering between him and the skull.
Come, I think you'll like modern plumbing.
This time when Christian tugged on Elgar's hand, he went with Christian eagerly. Julian kissed Damon's cheek and got a caress in return. Then Julian was striding alongside them. Elgar lowered his head and whispered to Christian, The prince should not be serving me. Julian cocked an eyebrow up as he and Christian's gazes met. He felt his best friend's consternation. He didn't want to be seen as a prince, but as one of them. Yet his role as fledgling of the king meant that he wasn't perhaps completely free to.
But what if Julian wishes to? Would you deny him that?
Christian asked. Elgar's head jerked up, and he looked at Julian with wide eyes. Though Elgar was and Iros, He clearly was not reaching for Julian's mind. It was a matter of respect. He would never read Julian's mind without permission. Christian realized he had kept the same distance until now. He had touched his best friend's thoughts, but not the deeper ones, only the ones that Julian wanted him to know. So Elgar did not know what Julian wanted.
Elgar,
Julian said softly.
I need your help.
Oh, of course. Whatever you need, Elgar stammered. Julian grimaced slightly at this obsequiousness, but then smoothed his expression to one of calmness.
I need friends. Friends like you who know the past, who understand Damon and Balthazar and all the other immortals.
As I said, to be your friends would be an honor. Elgar was going to bow, but Christian kept him upright.
Well, part of that means that I need you not to bow or worry about me serving you. Because if we're friends, Elgar, then you need to let me act like myself.
Julian put a hand against his chest.
Not as a prince. I need spaces where I'm just Julian, and I would like one of those spaces to be with you.
Elgar nibbled on his lower lip for long moments as they walked down the stairs to the lower level where the bedrooms were located. Christian thought that Julian's offer should have been a simple one to accept. Who wouldn't want to be Julian's friend? He knew he was biased, but when someone gives you a heartfelt speech like Julian just had, normally one would accept it. Yet Elgar was taking his time. Christian saw Julian's expression harden and a mask fall over his face while his mind filled with distress. Christian felt a wave of pain flow over him too. Had he totally misunderstood who Elgar was? He should never have presumed to bring into their circle someone he didn't know. And yet, he felt like he did know Elgar, so this made absolutely no sense to him.
I must have completely misunderstood what I was feeling from him and for him. I'm sorry, Elgar. I shouldn't have presumed that you would wish to extend friendship to someone you don't know,
Julian said stiffly.
Forget I asked.
No! Elgar's head jerked up again. There was something almost horse-like in that movement. When a horse is startled, that was. No, you misunderstand my silence. Please, forgive my seeming reticence. It is not what you think. I would like your friendship more than anything. To be your friend in return, I had to think about whether it would be best for you. Julian's eyebrows rose, even as his lips formed a frown. The pain from before, though, lessened. This wasn't a rejection. Christian's chest felt less tight as he realized this.
I'm afraid I don't understand,
Julian confessed. Elgar bobbed his head. You prize friendship, loyalty, and sincerity very highly. You could not imagine that someone could serve you better than to be your friend. Julian nodded after a moment.
I think that's a pretty fair assessment of me.
And I imagine that being your friend would give anyone great pleasure. Elgar intuited. Christian is not one to give his friendship easily, but he is utterly devoted to you. Christian nodded as well.
I am. It has been and always will be the cornerstone of my life.
Julian's amazement and happiness were like a sunrise between them. Julian smiled so broadly that his eyes nearly shut. His voice was husky as he said,
The same with me.
That friendship began when you were children, and friendship was the best thing you could have between you. Elgar stretched his right hand over the top of Iros's skull. But I am meeting you now, when I have other things I could offer that might suit you better. Julian frowned. Christian joined him.
I can assure you, Elgar, that I want your friendship more than any of these other things.
Julian shook himself. Elgar bobbed again. Yes, I know, but your protection is far more important. So I was going through scenarios as to what would be the best role I could play in order to keep you safe. A dawning understanding came to Christian as he saw Elgar stroke Iros's skull. He touched Elgar's shoulder.
Listen to me. You are not responsible for what happened to Iros in the war. In battles, terrible things happen. But I can assure you that the friendship and counsel you offered Iros back then was invaluable to him. Protection is an illusion,
Julian said firmly.
We're in danger no matter what. No matter how we try to stack the odds in our favor, If someone as powerful as Iros, or as far-seeing as Seer, or is able to escape anywhere like Wyvern fell, then
Julian shrugged.
basically, if it can happen to them, it can happen to anyone.
They had reached the bedroom, and the three of them stood outside of it. Elgar was still holding Iros' skull close to his body. He was almost curled over it. His expression was racked with guilt. If I had spent more time using my gift instead of being Iros' friend, perhaps we would have had the advantage, Elgar whispered.
Or maybe, if you weren't friends, the battle would have gone worse. Maybe Iros wouldn't have lasted as long as he did.
Julian put a hand on Elgar's slender shoulders.
But I do know one thing, and I'm certain that Balthazar would confirm it, which is that his life before would have been far less happy and enjoyable if you hadn't been his friend.
A single tear ran down Elgar's cheek. More came. His shoulders hunched and then shook. He turned from them and hid beneath his hood. Forgive me. Your kind words are like a balm. I cannot quite control myself. Both Christian and Julian rubbed Elgar's trembling back. Slowly, those shakes left, but Elgar seemed simply wrung out.
Come, let's get you into the shower and bed. Do you, want to feed?
Julian asked. It was still strange to Christian, too, to talk about food and human beings, but most of the acolytes seemed really into it, except for Dr. Stone. But he found the lack of control disconcerting. Elgar's forehead furrowed. What is a shower?
It's, let's just show you.
Julian suggested. Christian tried to send Elgar the image of a shower, but that just caused more consternation. I do not understand. Metal and... Elgar shook his head. How do you heat the water? Where are the flames? How does it get pumped here? Is there a windmill or are there acolytes pumping it by hand?
Oh boy, this is going to be interesting.
Julian laughed, but kindly.
I wonder if he'll be as interested in breaking the toilet as Damon seems to be. Though I think he does it because he thinks it's funny, and will annoy Balthazar.
Christian snorted.
Indeed. Come this way, Elgar. I think you are truly going to love modern plumbing.
If Everdark Academy is almost done being written, is that the end of the Everdark universe? No. In fact, I'm planning the third Everdark story now. Like Everdark and Everdark Academy, the story will focus on different main characters, including a fan favorite who's getting his own love interest, but will also have the same characters from Everdark and Everdark Academy that you've grown to love. It will also introduce some new characters that I also hope you come to love too. And this book sets up a fourth Everdark story. I think it's safe to say that as long as people want more Everdark, I want to write it. If you want to read the nearly complete sequel, Everdark Academy, the link to the sign-up form is in the notes.
Christian touched the light switch to illuminate the room. It was on a low setting as sensitive vampire eyes hardly needed it, but he found the lower light more congenial than blazing electricity. Yet for Elgar, even this little bit of illumination had him stopping dead in his tracks. His eyes were huge as he looked at the strips of light that were hidden by the crown molding, but cast a pleasant low glow. What is that? How does it create light without burning? Are they like the glowstones in the Everdark? They do not seem the same. And
Elgar, these are electric lights. They burn, but not in the way you think.
Christian suddenly felt overwhelmed for his older brother. There were so many things in this modern world that Elgar would not know, let alone understand. There were so many things he didn't understand but knew that they worked, like electricity.
We need to get Elgar here a tablet or computer so he can search the web and find out about the modern world,
Julian suggested. Christian took in Elgar's amazed expression as he stared at the lights and then at the flat-screen television. Elgar stroked the plastic.
He's never seen plastic before. Imagine the life he left and compare it to the one now. He's going to have so much to process, but not at this moment. That's a television. It's a device that streams moving pictures.
Christian sought for and found the old-fashioned word that helped the public understand this new technology. When it came out, moving pictures? Elgar frowned. Christian wanted to get Elgar into the bathroom, but Julian evidently couldn't resist showing him the wonders of television. Julian grabbed the remote and aimed it at the television. With a soft click, the television came to life, illuminating the room in a comforting glow. Christian had last been watching one of the nature streaming channels that showed lovely views and played soothing music, but it was not soothing at all for Elgar. Elgar stumbled back from the television that was showing a sunlit day. He held an arm up to block the sun from streaming upon him, but then he was grabbing the two of them and trying to hide them all under the bedclothes.
Whoa, Elgar! No, it's not the real sun. It's not a window.
Julian cried as Elgar tossed the thick comforter over Julian's head. His best friend looked like he was wearing a very bad ghost costume for Halloween, but he didn't have much time to find it amusing, as Elgar was literally shielding their bodies with his own.
Elgar, we're fine. This device won't hurt us, just like a painting of the sun wouldn't.
Christian finally assured him. Elgar's chest was heaving, though. His eyes were huge. Christian managed to break away and turn off the television. Darkness fell once more. Julian pulled off the comforter. His hair was standing on end.
You deserve all the static electricity you get,
Christian told him with a frown.
Yeah, I do, and then some.
Julian looked sheepish. He ran a hand over his head and said to Elgar,
I'm so sorry. I should have prepared you for that. I just thought you'd find it cool.
Elgar, breathing still coming in gasps, was checking his skin for burns. He checked theirs as well. When he realized that there was no danger, he covered his face with his hands. And I thought I could protect you better than be your friend. Elgar laughed shrilly. I do not understand this place at all. Christian put an arm around his shoulders.
You will, I promise.
With a warning look at Julian, he added,
We're just gonna take things slow. Come, I think the shower will be enough excitement for the day. Though there is a large tub if you'd rather take a bath. I think a shower first, and then a bath. Sorry, Elgar, but you've got enough dirt on you to blacken the water of about 10 baths.
Julian said with a grimace.
Taking a shower first will get rid of a lot of the grime, and then you can soak and relax.
Yes, indeed. Burrowing underground for so long has left me quite unkempt, Elgar agreed, and he drew the filthy shroud around him. Christian carefully led him over to the bathroom's door. He reached it to turn on the light.
Look inside first,
Christian cautioned. He wasn't going to have the toilet scare Elgar. Elgar leaned forward. His eyes ran over the vanity where there were double sinks. He gazed at the toilet distrustfully. The tub brought a smile of recognition, though the material it was made of seemed strange to him. Finally, his gaze alighted upon the shower. The sleek glass walls, the shiny fixtures, the beautifully patterned marble. That is the shower? Elgar asked, evidently comparing the real thing to what Christian had inartfully shown in his mind.
Let me show you how it works,
Christian suggested. Elgar nodded. Christian stepped into the bathroom while Elgar carefully followed behind. He opened the glass door, which Elgar carefully inspected. This is glass, Elgar stated excitedly. But it is so clear, so fine, and such a large sheet. I have only seen such things in the Everdark. Did we bring this here from there?
Not this piece, no.
Christian explained.
It was manufactured here, but I don't actually know if vampires introduced the concept of this kind of glass.
It's so thick. Elgar put his thumb and forefinger along the edge. It would be very difficult to break.
That's the idea,
Julian said from the doorway. His best friend was leaning against the doorframe.
It's tempered glass, safety glass. If it breaks, it does so in a way to cause the least injury possible.
Elgar examined the door minutely. Such a wonder, Julian grinned.
Again, I am so sorry that I scared you with the television. It's just, if you think safety glass is a wonder, I can't wait until you see real wonders.
Christian smiled. His best friend had a big heart and wanted Elgar to see things with awe and joy. But fear was always part of something new.
And he's so fragile still after what has happened to him. We need to go slow. I'll just have to keep reminding Julian of that. He jumps in with both feet first. See these handles, Elgar?
Christian asked, as he pointed to the largest of them. He then pointed above them.
If you turn it, it will turn on the spray from that shower head.
It was the rain showerhead.
And this handle turns on these jets.
He gestured to the 3 jets.
And this handle controls the temperature of the water. Once it hits the midpoint, the water will get warm and then very hot. I like it at this temperature.
Christian had it already set.
Does that make sense?
Elgar nodded, but Christian wondered if he truly understood it.
He'll learn, and probably make some mistakes along the way. But that's all right. That's how people figure things out. Now come over here and turn this handle.
He gestured to the handle for the rain showerhead and stepped out of the way. Elgar tentatively stepped inside the shower. He ran his hands along the marble tile and the walls of glass. He stroked the handle. It is so finely made. No imperfections, Elgar murmured.
The moment you turn the handle, the water will start coming out of the rain shower head. So expect to get wet.
Christian warned him. He already knew that Balthazar wanted him to get that horrible shroud away from Elgar and burn it. Occasionally, as they had walked, he'd seen the image of the shroud burning. He also saw that Balthazar wanted the skull put in a box, hidden away somewhere, but that was not going to happen. Even now, as Elgar went to turn the shower on, he had the skull tucked firmly under one arm.
Balthazar will just have to accept getting half of what he wants. I'll have to get some clothes for Elgar for now. I'm sure that Balthazar will have him fitted later, but he needs something to wear.
Elgar turned the handle. A little at first, and a small trickle of water came out of the rain shower head and dribbled down on his face. The water was cool, but Christian knew the moment that it became warm. Elgar let out a gasp and turned the handle all the way. A steady stream of water came out of the rain showerhead. Elgar tilted his head back and let the hot water flow over his face. He opened his mouth and let it fill before spitting it out. He put Iros's skull beneath the steady hot gust of water. Iros, what a wonder this is, Elgar told the skull. Oh, it is magnificent.
Don't they have something like this in the Everdark?
Julian asked, frowning.
I think they put the plumbing in later. It looked like humans made it to me. And clearly from his reaction, this is something new.
Christian said.
Yeah, Damon wasn't altogether familiar with it either. But he picks things up so naturally, it's always hard to tell when something's actually new.
Julian admitted with a shrug.
Elgar!
Christian called over the noise of the spray, or rather, sprays. Elgar had turned on the body sprays too, and was letting out hoots of enjoyment. This is marvelous, Elgar cried, his expression rapturous.
That's good.
Christian grinned.
There is soap for your body, and shampoo for your hair.
He pointed each one out. Elgar took the shampoo bottle and opened the top. He sniffed the contents. Again, delight painted his features. They smell of flowers and other spices, Elgar enthused. Oh, how glorious this is!
You might want to take off that shroud, Elgar, and really give yourself a scrub.
Julian suggested.
But we'll give you privacy for that.
Christian nodded.
We'll be in the next room. Please, just call if you need something.
Elgar was already delightedly twittering to the skull. Christian tried not to worry about that. The skull had been all that Elgar had to speak to for however long. He would get over it in time. Christian and Julian headed out of the fast-warming bathroom and closed the door. Julian chuckled.
He's having a great time. I don't think he's going to be leaving the shower anytime soon. Yes, but there's a lot of dirt that he has to scrub off.
Christian ran a hand through his own hair.
True.
At that moment, there was a soft knock on the door. Christian called for the person to come in. He recognized the minds. His mother, Sophia, and Sia were there, and there were other minds too. Small sparks of warmth. They were not human minds, though. The door opened, and Sophia was the first to race inside. She was carrying a large box without a lid. Her face was just shining. Her eyes were huge with tears of joy.
Christian, Julian! Your mommy did a wonderful thing! A wonderful, wonderful thing!
Sophia cried and thrust the box towards them. Inside were 4 kittens. Julian let out a shocked but happy laugh. Christian bit down on one of his own. He looked up at his mother's face. She looked a little smug.
Mom, what did you do?
Christian asked. His mother grinned.
I brought a little joy and happiness into this house. Well, for some of us.
Join us next time for episode 91, Kittens rule.
If you want to support this podcast and get the unedited episodes, we actually have something better than a Patreon. I have my own serial subscription website, wraithrain.com. It's an old-fashioned paywall site, just like Netflix or Crunchyroll. With a membership, you do get the uncut versions of Everdark with no intros, outros, or edited parts. Just the chapters as they were meant to be heard before we've had to make it all Disney safe. If this sounds interesting to you, try us out for a month. The link to sign up is in the notes. The most you'll pay is $9.95 a month, and you'll be directly supporting us, real people, not big corporations like Amazon or Netflix, not content created with AI. Wraith Rain is a small team of actual humans doing the best we can to transport you with romantic action and adventure stories. We really thank you for your support.
Everdark, Episode 91. Kittens Rule. Last on Everdark, Julian and Christian introduced Elgar to some of the wonders of modern technology. But Elgar wasn't as enchanted as they imagined. At least, not at first. "I'm surrounded," Balthazar cried out as the 4 kittens took their places. A black, cheeky fellow was on the armrest of the couch he sat on. A tortoise-shell-colored one was parked in front of his feet, blocking his escape. One as white as snow with huge blue eyes was on the couch cushion beside his, though one paw was experimentally lifting towards his thigh. And the final bugger, a shadowy grey number with pudgy cheeks and long whiskers, was on the back of the couch, his tail brushing Balthazar's cheek.
By kittens. You're surrounded by kittens,
Christian said, with absolutely no sympathy whatsoever. In fact, his fledgling appeared ready to laugh. "You act as if that makes them any less deadly." His voice rose up. "Notice how they have chosen to surround the one person who does not find them adorable. They know that I am their nemesis. They will overcome me."
It's because you're sitting so still and not bothering them. Cats love people like you.
William pointed out. He was looking longingly at the kittens, but stayed by the fireplace's mantel. It had been determined to allow the little squeakers free rein and see who they chose to go near. They had all chosen him.
They like you best, Balthazar.
Sophia said in her sing-song voice, and then covered her lips as she giggled. She was seated on the floor of the living room, where seemingly every single vampire in his house had assembled to ooh and ah over the fuzzy monsters that had taken over his domain. The only people not there were Julian, Damon, Arceus, and Fiona. The 4 of them were in deep discussions involving the Order. Balthazar couldn't help rolling his eyes when they talked about religion, so he had thought he was getting the better part of the bargain when he agreed to see the gifts that Elizabeth Thorne had gotten Sophia. Julian had let out a laugh, which had made him suspicious, but since he knew it was rude to read Julian's mind, he had let it pass. "Foolish me. Why don't you at least sit with me, Christian?" Balthazar whined. The kittens might be disturbed and leave. That would be excellent. But Christian remained standing as well behind Sophia, arms crossed. His lips really were suspiciously twitching. The traitor!
No, I'm good. I have a perfect view from right here. Besides, I need to observe them to help come up with names.
Christian tapped his chin, as if the naming of the beasts truly took some intellectual heft. "Sire, as a fellow immortal, you should assist me in solidarity," Balthazar called to the blind woman who sat in a large, high-backed armchair by the fire, looking rather like a queen. She did not hide her smile.
Oh, Balthazar, if you could only see yourself in this moment. It is a sight I do not want to miss.
"Are you taunting me?" He scowled at her.
Not at all. I promise you I can see quite well. The short-term future is always very clear,
she told him.
"And we're taking pictures to remember it by,"
Ridley said, as she used her phone to catch seemingly every angle of him and the beasts.
"Oh, look! The black one is planning on leaping on you."
Alarmed, Balthazar's eyes darted towards the cheeky black one on the couch's armrest. Indeed, he had hunkered down and was wiggling his butt, as if winding himself up. He leaped. Balthazar bit back a cry as the black piece of fluff landed directly on his crotch.
Aww.
Everyone said. Ridley took another dozen pictures. Balthazar grimaced. The black one was now kneading his crotch as if he expected milk. Elena was even smiling, though her face still showed a bone-deep grief and exhaustion.
I bet by the end of the week you'll want them sleeping with you.
Gods, no! Balthazar cried. The grey one behind him let out a sharp meow of shock at the loud noise he'd made. He soothed it with a few low words. That is not happening, he whispered, keeping his voice much softer so as not to disturb the kittens. Christian, I demand they be banned from the bedroom.
But they're kittens. They cannot be left on their own at night.
Christian was frowning. This is ridiculous. They have a whole house full of vampires who, from the dumb looks of love on their faces, would be more than happy to host them. Balthazar's voice was rising. He lowered it once more. Sophia begged for these things. Surely she will want them?
Oh, I do.
Sophia assured him. She was, in fact, looking at the kittens rather rapturously.
But Seer must rest, and the kittens are notorious for wanting to play.
Balthazar's head shot towards Seer. He couldn't deny that the immortal looked far better than when they'd found her, but she was still way too thin. So he couldn't deny that she needed her rest. That meant he wouldn't be getting any unless someone kept these kittens away. The white kitten placed a paw on his thigh. He felt the prick of baby sharp claws dig into his flesh. He did not dare pull away. His pants might be damaged, and he was sure to be scratched. Plus, the white kitten had a most piteous meow when she didn't get her way. So the paw and claws remained, with him enduring all of it. Elizabeth Thorne looked on with a wide smile.
I can see that the kittens are a big hit.
Balthazar narrowed his eyes at her. He knew who was to blame for this. Do you not think that you should have waited until this war with the Kali is over before bringing pets into our lives? Balthazar's tone was a little arctic. Elizabeth, however, appeared as unrepentant as her son.
On the contrary, I think with war on the horizon, we should live for the moment. We shouldn't wait to do all we want.
They are adorable.
Henry Thorne rubbed his chin.
I know we said no more pets for a while, Elizabeth, but seeing these little guys...
You can take these. You can have them, Balthazar pleaded.
Those are not yours to give away.
Elizabeth reminded him firmly.
You can't give my and Christian's kitties away.
Sophia looked stricken. Her pleading face had him swallowing. Of course not. Christian was giving him a hard stare too. He stood now between his parents, and it seemed that the Thorns, by the power of 3, were causing Balthazar to wilt.
I was rather thinking of us getting a dog.
Henry said evenly. A dog? Oh, not cats. Elgar, my favourite fledgling. Balthazar gave Christian a hard stare this time, which elicited no reaction whatsoever. Well, Christian smirked, so that was a reaction, just not the one Balthazar had hoped to induce. Save me, Elgar. Elgar? Elgar was seated as well in a pair of sweatpants and a hoodie that practically swallowed his thin form. He was hunched over the tablet that Christian had given him. He had discovered the internet and appeared completely and utterly lost in all the information he could see through one electronic window. Balthazar didn't think that Elgar had blinked, let alone noticed anyone or anything since he'd seen all the information at his fingertips. He did, however, still have that damned skull in his lap. Evidently, it was the equivalent of his security blanket. Elgar? Balthazar called. Earth to Elgar? Elgar's head finally shot up. Colour flooded his cheeks. Master? You, Oh, how sweet. You are making friends with the kittens. No. I want you to. Balthazar's voice drifted off as Elgar was absorbed back into the internet. He sighed. To save me? But Elgar's head remained down. He sighed again. No one was going to save him. He was so unloved. The black cat curled on top of his crotch and purred, The grey one dropped down onto his shoulder and was leaning against his cheek. The tawny one was on his feet. Finally, the white one still had a paw on his leg. Her eyes closed, evidently having fallen asleep sitting up. A third sigh.
I cannot wait to share these pics.
Ridley enthused. More pictures, more ahs, more sighs.
What are we doing next about Callie?
William asked, evidently able to pull himself out of his kitten-drunk reverie. That is a very good question, Balthazar said. The grey kitten toppled over, and he quickly caught the little bugger before he tumbled down his chest. He thought about placing the kitten on the couch, but it mewed so sweetly that he found himself simply placing the kitten back on his shoulder where he settled into a doze again. Christian was smiling at him so hugely for that action that he almost didn't mind it.
My phone has been blowing up.
Ridley told him between pictures.
I think I've heard from every single Iros.
You're not alone.
William held up his phone as if it were an exhibit.
They want to come here, Balthazar.
Here? To the manor?
Elena's forehead furrowed.
Is that wise? There are bound to be Callie sympathizers among them, not to mention finding out that immortals exist among us.
She let her voice drop off.
I can only imagine how this announcement must be seen.
Henry said, stroking his chin again.
It would be like the saints coming down from heaven.
Saints.
William coughed.
Balthazar? A saint?
Ridley snickered too, which made Balthazar happy. They accepted him as Iros, but they loved him as Balthazar. It was such a relief.
Well, perhaps more of a sinner.
Henry chuckled.
But there will be definite awe and even fear. Your existence among them all this time will have them doubting their understanding of their world.
Hopefully they will accept it as we did with the existence of vampires.
Elizabeth said.
You took our existence very well, Elizabeth, Mommy.
Sophia said. She rested her head against Elizabeth's leg, rather like the kittens were doing to him. Elizabeth petted her head. The kittens were now making purring noises as well, little motors that rumbled against his muscles. It was almost pleasant. Almost. I cannot believe I am saying this, but I do think the order will be helpful in keeping people calm. Balthazar laid his head back on the couch. The grey kitten adjusted closer to his neck. Now he wouldn't be able to lift his head without squishing the little guy, so he remained how he was.
If people thought about the damage and the lies that the Order has perpetrated on all of us, they would be the last people anyone would trust.
Elena crossed her arms over her chest. If Balthazar remembered rightly, Elena had been very devout when she was human and had been inspired by the Order. She had asked Roan if she could join the Order as a confessor. He, of course, had said no, because it meant so much to her, and it would take her out of his power. But now her expression was grim, betrayed undoubtedly by what they had all learned from Damon and immortals existing.
But what about Callie?
William demanded.
When do we go against him?
Soon. It was Damon who answered. And all of a sudden, every single kitten was awake.
I've made a few attempts to do some gay romance fairy tale retellings. The trouble is, I'm an action and adventure writer, so there's a whole lot of story that just isn't there in the originals. Cursed is my most faithful retelling. It's a gay romance version of Beauty and the Beast with tiger shifters. But it does feature a good-hearted hero who nobly sacrifices himself to live with an enigmatic, reclusive rich man in his mansion who turns out to have a dangerous and sexy secret. He turns into a white tiger. The story has a lot of margaritas and emotional drama, which is why it's 3 books long. The link to it is in the notes.
Plaintive and excited meows left each of the little squeakers' mouths. They were hopping off him, abandoning him, and racing across the floor, their little feet skidding out from under them on the slick wood floors towards the Vampire King. Balthazar wasn't sure how Damon would react to the fuzzy ones, but if he had thought that the Vampire King would have a negative reaction, he was soon disabused of it. Damon swept down and gathered each of the 4 kittens in his hands and brought them immediately up to his face. The kittens were so small that he could easily hold 2 in each hand. He showered them with kisses. The excited meows were so sweet that every person was looking at the tableau with huge anime eyes. Such wonderful babies. Yes, you are. Oh, my sweet ones, I have you. Oh, yes, another kiss, and another kiss. I did not mean to miss you. Here, you get 2 kisses. Damon followed through on his promises. Elgar immediately got up onto his feet, internet forgotten. My king, Elgar breathed. His second was about to get on his knees, while everyone else looked on in bewilderment, except Arceus. Arceus was the bowing type, but though Balthazar adored Damon and respected him no end, he would have found it incredibly tiresome to get up, bow, and scrape every time the Vampire King entered the room. The manor wasn't that large, and Damon was sometimes underfoot, sort of like the kittens. Seer began to gracefully rise as well, and Balthazar was about to scramble to his feet when Damon urged them all to sit. I am honored by this, but there is no need for such formality here and now, Damon assured them. His lips twitched as he said, Eiros is quite right, that all you would be doing is bowing and scraping because his pleasant abode is a little abode. For now. Balthazar shrugged when Elgar gave him a slightly scandalized look and Seer a small smile. It's true. I love him too, but we have things to do, and bowing takes a lot of time, Balthazar said as he settled himself back on the sofa.
Yeah, I'm all for no bowing,
Julian admitted with a shrug. Damon kissed his fledgling's forehead. You must get used to some niceties.
I suppose so.
Julian stood beside his master, grinning from ear to ear, reaching up and scratching the kittens between the ears. The kittens looked to be completely in love. Balthazar touched where the black kitten had been curled up. Christian caught the action, and he quickly pretended to be plucking fur from his clothes. He did not feel betrayed that the kittens left him immediately for Damon, though at least that showed sense, preferring the Vampire King above all others.
You look a little peeved to have lost your animal companions.
Arceus rumbled. Not in the least. They were furring me. Now Damon can understand the joys of black clothing and fur. Balthazar sniffed. Christian came over and sat beside him, slipping against his side as easily as the kittens had. Balthazar leaned over and kissed his head just as Damon kissed the kittens. Christian turned and kissed him back, though. Damon and Julian joined them on the couch. Before he sat down, Damon carefully placed the kittens in the lap of Sophia's dress. They meowed for him, but quickly settled down once she was petting them. Julian kissed Elizabeth and embraced Henry before taking his seat. We must talk about what is to come, Damon said as he slid an arm around Julian's shoulders. Arceus and Fiona went to the mantelpiece. They stood on either side of the fire and looked like matching bookends in their leather confessor clothing. You said earlier that I should expect crowds. There are no crowds here, Balthazar pointed out with an amused smile. Damon smiled back. They are coming. Of course they will come, Master. You are Eiros, Elgar assured him. Part of Balthazar didn't believe that. He'd been an outsider all his vampire life, at least this time around. He couldn't imagine being mobbed. He had called for all the Eiros to come, and some had, for sure, to Solace. Lisette and her people had returned through the gate to continue to operate things there. Arceus and Fiona were supposed to return as well, but the thought of them being mobbed here at the manor still seemed outlandish to him. Maybe they would come to see Damon, but not him. I will take both your words for it, Balthazar said, and found himself looking at the kittens almost lovingly. Dogs, more than cats, gave unconditional love, but the kittens, no. He did not care for the furry beasts one bit. I realize that many of you want to know what we are to do with Callie, Damon said to the solemn room. There was a bit of fire in his house's eyes as well. Callie vampires were not favorites. Callie himself was definitely not liked after what had happened to Heath. Looking at Elena, he saw yet more reason to dislike the other immortal. But do I trust her? Damon says we can, but her loss is so deep it is hard to get a read on what she is feeling, other than deep grief. And am I still to punish her? He didn't know what he wanted to do, let alone what he was supposed to do.
Will we bust into Callie's city and take him out?
William clenched a fist, and his silver eyes gleamed.
A little bloodthirsty there, William.
Ridley laughed.
Don't you want to get some back? We've been treated like crap. Callie wants to keep the damn status quo.
William was surprisingly heated, but he was honest about his anger coming from how they had been treated, and not just defending Damon's honor. There were fierce looks all around. Balthazar clucked to himself, but he understood. They had been mistreated. They had resisted a master using his position of power to abuse them, and no one would step in and help them. When they had helped themselves, they had been punished for it. In a way, what had happened to them was a microcosm of what the Order and Kali had done to all the vampires. Damon nodded in understanding. What you must remember is that most everyone has been misled by Kali, and most people are sheep. Elizabeth's eyebrows rose.
That is unkind, Damon.
But it's true. Damon's lips twitched. You know it to be true, Elizabeth. She inclined her head as she reluctantly added,
Thinking is difficult. Critically thinking is even more so, especially when it means going against your whole society.
But we can hate Callie, can't we?
William almost looked dismayed at the thought there was no one he could take vengeance on. There will be plenty of people who will stand against us, Damon assured him. His innocent, boyish William grinned. Balthazar tried not to sigh. He was more of a lover than a fighter himself, though there had been a time, right after Roan's death, when all he wanted to do was howl and fling himself against those smug bastards who were throwing him and the others away. As if they had not told us we were trash by not helping us in the first place.
Not as many as you might think.
Seer stated quietly.
People are hungry for meaning. You give that to them, my king.
Most definitely.
William nodded. Thank you, Seer. Kali's betrayal is because he sees me as having earned it, Damon murmured. I should not have left you all. I should have been stronger. You were weighed down with grief, Elgar stated softly, his fingers pausing on his constant swiping. Julian carded his hands through the back of Damon's thick black hair.
I'm sorry, but missing you doesn't mean he gets to lie to everyone and harm people.
Damon kissed Julian's forehead, but then he asked Seer, was it necessary? What Kali did? She thought for a moment.
You know that I believe everything has happened as it should, as it must.
You can really see the future?
Elizabeth asked, still petting Sophia. And it was Sophia who answered.
Oh yes, it is our gift and our curse. Mistress sees so much more than even I do, and I see far.
Elizabeth gripped Sophia tighter to her, as if the future was going to sweep the vampire out of her grasp.
What I will say, Damon, is that Kali acted to form, but by the time he acted, there wasn't much to conquer.
Seer remarked, which is also part of Kali's form. He waits until the last possible moment. Damon shook his head. Part of me says that Kali cannot just get away with what he's done, Balthazar muttered. But another part of me worries that I'm being a hypocrite. How much of a part did I play in the war that came? How many bad choices did I make while you were asleep? I know I'm not blameless.
You tried to hold things together, Balthazar,
Seer assured him.
You reminded everyone that though Damon was asleep, he was not gone, and he would return. What would he think if he came back to a ruin?
Yes, well, he came back to a bunch of brainwashed vampires. I mean, I didn't even believe that immortals existed until he returned, and I am one, Balthazar cried. Master, you fought to the bitter end for the empire that was King Damon's, Elgar assured him as well, clutching the skull. You gave your life for it. You see me as quite a bit better than I am, Elgar. I know myself. I doubt I acted perfectly. Balthazar's grim mood was suddenly squashed as the black kitten climbed up the arm of the couch and took pride of place on his crotch again, where he promptly fell asleep. Balthazar petted the soft head, but quickly snatched his hand away and cleared his throat noisily. Sophia burbled out a little laugh. Regardless of what was done in the past, Kali is acting in the present. Kali wants my attention. He feels he has cause to be angry with me, and that what he did by creating the order was to establish peace at any cost. Damon said, his voice dropping low and his gaze going distant. It was only when Julian squeezed his arm that he refocused once more. His expression hardened. He will get that attention, and he will rue the moment he wanted it.
Will there be many deaths?
Elizabeth paled. Her gaze immediately went to the two boys that were her sons. Only for those who want it. Damon's cold smile was not one that Balthazar would ever want aimed at him. He tented his hands and rested his chin upon them. Eliminating the threat that Kali poses is not where our focus should be. As I said, Kali is a remnant of the past. We need to be looking to the future. Balthazar felt that vision of dread and excitement. Damon was going to tell the group. He was going to tell them about his plans for the world. What do you think this world needs? Damon asked. Do you think it needs more direct control by us? The vampires all blinked and shifted except for those who had already guessed Damon's desires to take over this planet.
Humanity is as humanity has always been, self-destructive.
Elena murmured.
But they are still here and have created many wonders.
Yes, but at what cost?
Ridley asked, as she toyed with her phone.
The world is polluted. It is warming at an alarming rate. There will be water shortages and food shortages and pandemics. Humanity has not been such good stewards, if you ask me.
After the war we just talked about, do you think we're any better? Balthazar challenged her. Think how we were treated by the Vampire Council. Think about how just a few weeks ago we had to beg, barter, and steal to get what we needed from other houses, even within our own bloodline.
You're probably right, Balthazar, that we aren't much better.
William agreed with a shake of his head.
But
Damon's voice was soft.
humans are our food and our way to procreate.
William answered with a shrug.
But humans aren't cattle.
Elizabeth cried.
No, Mother. We here don't treat them as such.
Christian spoke up.
But I don't think we should act as if we are not bound to their fate. As William said, we need them to feed from and make more vampires, so we have a vested interest in sustaining them.
What are you suggesting, Christian?
Henry asked his son. Christian drew in a breath, but then said,
Humans are mortals. Even if they are thinking of their grandchildren or generations beyond, many more think only of themselves. Having someone in charge that has a longer view, even if it is self-serving, might be better.
You have a chilling intellect, my darling, Balthazar admitted to Christian.
I know that it isn't perhaps noble, but that doesn't mean what I'm saying isn't best, at least for vampires, and I believe for humans too.
Christian answered. So you would advocate a more direct role by vampires in human affairs? Damon clarified, even though Balthazar was certain he knew exactly what Christian meant. He wants everyone else to know it.
We already do have a role.
Ridley pointed out.
But we need to be more of one, much more of one,
Christian said. Balthazar grimaced. Though Christian was right, he knew that his fledgling would remember these words later when Damon did exactly what he suggested. The Vampire King straightened out and then smiled just before Balthazar's phone buzzed. He fished it out of his pocket, careful not to disturb the kitten too much. Yes? Balthazar saw it was the gate guard. He noticed that all his house members were checking their phones. It was then he also felt the swell of voices in his head. He had been noticing their growing intensity, but had ignored it to focus on the moment. He realized his mistake. Balthazar, the gate guard said breathlessly. You need to get out here. There are people to see you. Lots and lots of people. Understood. Balthazar ended the call and looked over at the grinning Vampire King. You're going with me to see this pitchfork-wielding crowd. They are undoubtedly here for you, Damon. I will go with you, old friend, Damon laughed. But I assure you that they are here for you. Then I must be prepared for battle. Balthazar scooped up the black kitten and placed him on his shoulder, where the kitten easily rested as if meant to be there. I shall bring Mephistopheles here, Mephi for short. He will be my battle cat. Let us go, King Damon. We are well protected. Mephi meowed. Join us next time for episode 92. The show has just begun.
If you want to support this podcast and get the unedited episodes, we actually have something better than a Patreon. I have my own serial subscription website, wraithrain.com. It's an old-fashioned paywall site, just like Netflix or Crunchyroll. With a membership, you do get the uncut versions of Everdark with no intros, outros, or edited parts. Just the chapters as they were meant to be heard before we've had to make it all Disney safe. If this sounds interesting to you, try us out for a month. The link to sign up is in the notes. The most you'll pay is $9.95 a month, and you'll be directly supporting us, real people, not big corporations like Amazon or Netflix, not content created with AI. Wraith Rain is a small team of actual humans doing the best we can to transport you with romantic action and adventure stories. We really thank you for your support.
Everdark, episode 92. The show has just begun. Last on Everdark, Balthazar was surrounded by kittens as the vampires discussed what to do about Kali, but more importantly, what to do in the future, namely whether vampires should take a more active role in human affairs. And then the crowds arrived. Are they here for Damon or Balthazar? The vehicles and crowds of people stretched down the block and out of sight. Headlamps flared like golden torches. There were as many vampires outside of the cars as there were in them. They streamed down the road, hundreds of them, close to 1,000, and more were coming. This would surely be noticed by the humans. Damon was about to reach out and block the humans from noticing this, but he stopped when he realized that had already been done. Damon felt dozens of powerful Iros minds reaching out and stopping those in the houses along the way from noticing them. "Stay in your houses," they said. "There is nothing to see here. Stay in your houses. Go to sleep. There is nothing to hold your interest outside your doors and windows." "They are keeping their presence hidden, Iros," Damon said. "Of course. They are Iros. They're intelligent. Well, most of them are," Balthazar answered. This crowd of vampires reminded Damon of some of the rallies he'd had in Nightvallen. Pleasurable, potent memories of his people reaching out for him, crying his name, falling to their knees with adoration. He had earned that adoration back then. He had kept them safe, the peace intact, and all had looked positive for the future, except for his lack of a fledgling. That had tainted everything for him. But they had been genuinely grateful. He would make sure they were again with Julian by his side. But this crowd was there to see Balthazar first, and him second. He was glad to cede the spotlight to his best friend. Balthazar needed some love and recognition and maybe even revenge. He and his battle cat, Mephi. The black kitten easily rode Balthazar's shoulder as if both of them had been doing this for years instead of moments. Balthazar reached up and scratched between Mephi's ears and kissed his nose. "I will have to keep treats in a pocket for Mephi," Balthazar murmured with a frown as Mephi meowed piteously for attention and, evidently, food. "Where is the being who hates cats?" Damon chuckled. "I have no idea. Did I really hate cats back in the day?" Balthazar asked. "Only because you were afraid to love them. But you aren't afraid anymore, I think," Damon answered. Balthazar looked up at him, a touch of surprise on his face. "So I may have gone further than my former self in one way?" "Yes, I believe you have." Damon reached up and tickled Mephi under his furry chin. "He very much likes to be scratched on the ruff in front," Balthazar informed him, and Damon obliged. The crowd surged against the wrought iron fence as he and Balthazar neared them. There were 2 burly members of House Ravenscroft on either side of the large gate. They were gazing at the crowds with narrowed eyes. They were a little jumpy. Balthazar sent a wave of calmness out to his people and to the crowd. Everyone settled. But Balthazar still didn't look at them. Are you ignoring the crowd, or is Mephi really in such distress that they do not deserve your attention, Iros? Damon asked dryly. As they stopped at the wrought iron gate, there were rows upon rows of faces looking at them both with a sense of awe. They were strangely silent, or perhaps not, as they were Iros bloodline and thoughts were just as effective as voices. Luminous silver eyes were all fixed on them. Damon met their gazes, which quickly dropped, while Balthazar studiously continued to look at Mephi. Oh, maybe a little of column A and a little of column B, Balthazar murmured. I did not expect you to have stage fright. Or are you just being shy all of a sudden? Damon's lips were threatening to break into a grin. I am just building anticipation, Balthazar murmured. Let us see what anticipation they are feeling. The Vampire King opened his mind more fully to the crowd that waited so patiently beyond the gates. He did not bother reading individual thoughts. That way lay madness. What he did was look for themes, and he found them. Is that him? Damon? It must be. He's tall, dark, and handsome, but there's something about him that's not human, not vampire. You can tell he's not from around here. What does he intend to do? Rule us? Kill us? We could rule the world with him. We would be safe. Are we food to him? If he's here and Iros is here, then what about the other immortals? We're not alone. We are not alone. We are not alone. They like you, Balthazar murmured. Yes, of course. I am king, Damon reminded him. Balthazar snorted. You use that phrase to mean so many things. Actually, it incorporates many meanings, all in one, Damon pointed out. So it's shorthand. Balthazar raised his eyebrow. In a manner of speaking. Now, let us see what they're thinking about you. Damon swept his mind out again. Balthazar killed Roan Tithe. We should have known then that he wasn't a normal vampire. Is that really Iros? Balthazar was always so arrogant, believing himself to be something special when he isn't. We exiled him. An immortal. What is he going to do to us? If Iros is close to King Damon, does that mean our bloodline will be above all others? Balthazar was always friendly to me. Surely he'll remember how I didn't turn away from him when he was exiled, right? Right? The council are the leaders of the vampires. That must be made clear to Balthazar and this King Damon. The last thought came from a man that was making his way through the crowd from an elegant vehicle that looked less like a coffin than the others. He was middle-aged looking in human years, with frost at his temples and thick, dark hair swept back from a high forehead. An aquiline nose was framed by two deep-set, piercing silver eyes. People moved aside for him because of his rank and age, not to mention the line of old, powerful vampires that acted as his personal guard. His name was Martin Devenus. He was over 1,000 years old and an Iros. He was also a high-ranking member of the council, and he thought he was in charge. Damon smiled. This was going to be fun. Were you waiting for him, Iros? Damon asked Balthazar. Oh, I knew he'd show up at some point. I knew him, well, from before, Balthazar replied dryly. During the trial for the killing of Roan Tithe, he made a speech. Was it a good speech? It was a brilliant speech, Balthazar chuckled dryly. While he felt it was terrible about the fact that Roan Tithe had essentially tortured all of us for centuries, the rule of law demanded that I be punished to the severest extent that it allowed. Oh, and he managed to mention how he was of the Iros bloodline too, and that it pained him to do this, but I was no good and needed to be put down like the dog I was. I cannot wait to see what happens next. Are you going to sick Mephi on him? Damon asked. Balthazar smirked. I wouldn't soil Mephi's claws. Councillor Devenus had made it to the front of the line. His personal guard had pushed people out of the way. Though they hissed and bared teeth at the guards, their cold looks in response had these younger vampires standing down, though they still glowered angrily. Councillor Devenus stood in front of the gates. His personal guard made sure there was 5 feet of space around him in all directions. Those piercing silver eyes swept from him to Balthazar. and they found both of them wanting. As to him, the Councillor Devonus thought, at least he looks the part of the king, even if he is undoubtedly a fraud. As to Balthazar, Councillor Devonus thought, trouble, always in the middle of it. I should have known that exiling him wouldn't put a stop to this. Didn't I say he needed to be handed his second death? Well, now is the time for it. The crowd, which had been silent before, was now moving restlessly. There were looks of sheer hatred shot at Councillor Devonus. His personal guards found this alarming. The people should show respect to the councillor. They had always done so before, but now the crowd seemed almost ready to attack one of their leaders, one of their betters, when they should have been seeking Councillor Devonus's favor. That is the start of a revolution, Damon thought. Martin, how not a pleasure to see you again, Balthazar finally said with one of his pained yet bright smiles. Is that a cat on your shoulder? Councillor Devonus frowned at Mephi as he finally noticed the animal. Mephi meowed at him imperiously. Balthazar scratched Mephi between the ears. Yes, it is. Now, Martin, I really thought I wouldn't see you darken my door again, Balthazar said, continuing to smile. Are we on a first-name basis now, Balthazar? Or should I say, Eiros? Councillor Devonus asked with a faint smile as if it were an in-joke between them. While we share the intimacy of you calling for my second death, you do not have the right to call me by my first name. And the non-bowing rule certainly doesn't apply to you, Balthazar said as he tipped his head towards Damon. You should bow to our king, Martin. Without even looking at Damon, Councillor Devonus stated, The council has not yet ascertained if King Damon has in fact returned. This person could be anyone, and I am more than certain that he is a fraud. Balthazar turned to Damon. It looks like you're imaginary until the council says you're not. Amazing how much power they have now, isn't it? Damon just smiled thinly. I thought Caemorn was in charge and the council just rubber-stamped his proclamations. Well, the preceptor really is in charge, but since we imprisoned him in Solace's dungeon, the council must have got all excited that they could step up and fill the void, Balthazar explained with an amused bark of laughter at the end. Oh, Caemorn will be displeased. Not that he can do anything about it. He does have bigger problems than an uppity council. It actually appears they are our problems. I see. Damon nodded. The council has always been in charge, Councillor Devonus stated. I pulled what I said before from your mind, Martin, so please, lying is embarrassing for you, me, for all of us here. Balthazar narrowed his eyes at the man. Councillor Devonus rolled his shoulders and tugged at the collar of his fine dark suit, but said nothing. You're all a part of my bloodline, but not all of you are made equal. And your mental shields, Martin, are pathetic, by the way. Even if they were good, it wouldn't have kept me out, but still, you should work on those. Sloppy is as sloppy does.
Original work is harder and harder to find in a world full of reactions, commentary, plagiarism, and generic ChatGPT content. And I'm really glad you found us. Every word of the story is from me, typed into my laptop while sitting on my couch. And a real person spoke every word into a microphone as well, not an AI voice. I got into producing stories because I care about entertaining you, the human who's listening to this right now. And while we certainly could have had a bot army to listen to episodes, leave realistic comments, and make us look really popular, it just wouldn't be satisfying. I'm glad you're with me for this story, and I would love it if you left a comment just to say hello.
There was a smattering of laughter among the Eiros. Councillor Devonus was not a fan favourite. His personal guards stiffened. Again, this lack of respect was growing, not lessening as their master spoke. Councillor Devonus grimaced, but remained ramrod straight, as if the laughter did not bother him at all, which, of course, it did. Hugely. He was thin-skinned, and Damon had no doubt that he would have one of his guards harm one of the crowd of Eiros to make a point. Not that he would allow that. but it was part of this man's character. "He is not used to being laughed at," Damon remarked. "Not to his face, he isn't," Balthazar said with a snort. "The people feel they can risk it now that the immortal Eiros is here to lead them." Damon said, "Ah, you should listen more closely to their thoughts, my king, because they are talking more about you." Balthazar gave him an arch look. "They are talking about us," Damon compromised, though he still thought that he was right. "In any event, Balthazar," Councillor Devanus continued, using Eiros's given name, "I am here to meet this alleged king of ours and examine him. As to your own claims of being Eiros, are you actually claiming to be an immortal?" The way Councillor Devanus said the last was meant to bear the ultimate insult, as if Balthazar could not be so foolish as to be claiming what could absolutely not be true. Damon's fangs emerged. Balthazar felt the anger on his behalf bloom in Damon's chest, and made a little wave to show him he did not care. "He's a bastard. He can't help it, my king," Balthazar said. "Should I do to him what I did to those who opposed us in Solace?" Damon asked. There was a stirring in the crowd. The news about that had already spread far and wide, as Damon had known it would, but he also knew that there would need to be more demonstrations before his rule was unquestioned again. So this fool Councillor Devanus could be of some use. Balthazar stroked his chin as he regarded Councillor Devanus speculatively. "Well, while Armageddon was absolutely spectacular and devastating, I do love when you use the other gifts. Simply turning this windbag mortal again isn't as spectacular as all that you can do. Not that you shouldn't take away his immortality later, but for now, I'm leaning towards other gifts." "Are you claiming that he can take our immortality away?" Councillor Devanus scoffed, placing one beringed hand against his chest. He had plump hands that had never worked. Damon knew from a bare scraping of his memories. He had been a rich man who had been turned because he had land and influence that would be useful to the vampires. Now, because he had managed to stay alive and out of harm's way for long enough, he acted as if he were entitled to be running things. "I claim nothing," Damon answered. Councillor Devanus blinked in confusion, but then smiled fulsomely. "So you are not claiming I do things. I do not claim to do things. And the gift that I allowed the other immortals to give you, I can take away," Damon answered simply, his voice darkening as he drew power into him. "Oh, you're going to do it! You're going to use the other powers! Oh, I so love this!" Balthazar let out a bark of laughter. Damon smiled genuinely at him. "I will let you have some fun as well, Eiros, but—" No, I am glad to let you go first." Balthazar gestured towards the gate as if ceding the stage. "Gentlemen, this is quite the show you are putting on," Councillor Devanus said dryly. "On the contrary, Martin," Balthazar chuckled. "The show has just begun." Councillor Devanus frowned and waved at the crowd. "I think that a discussion away from all this rabble would be more appropriate." That was as far as Councillor Devanus got. Using the power of the Ashir, Damon levitated himself 6 feet into the air. His hands lifted from his sides, and the gates opened wide of their own accord. The 2 House Ravenscroft guards drew back and tensed, as they expected everyone to rush in. But with a mental command from Balthazar, all stayed behind the gate. He was not using the gift against Councillor Devanus, though. "I want him to have a close-up view," Balthazar explained. "So, you are of the Ashir bloodline, Damon, or whatever your true name is," Councillor Devanus stated, looking a little paler, but still confident this was all a fraud. Lightning streaked across the sky as Damon had storm clouds cover all but a sliver of the moon. That silvery light landed upon him. He was wreathed in ghostly radiance.
"Horus! Horus's gift to control the weather, too!"
Someone shouted. Damon allowed the lightning to streak through the deep clouds so it made it seem as if the very sky was on fire. "Oh, good show! This is excellent!" Balthazar clapped. I've never seen a Horus do this so well. The gate could have been opened by remote control, and the clouds could be a coincidence. Councillor Devonus cried out to the crowd. Damon pointed towards a far hill. All of the crowd turned towards it. He sent a lightning bolt streaking out of the sky to hit it. Even at this distance, they saw the earth erupt in a geyser, some of it becoming molten before it fell back down.
Oh my God!
Is he a god? I've never seen a Horus do as much as that.
It's Damon! It's Damon!
Councillor Devonus strode onto House Ravenscroft's lands even as the rest of the crowd hung back. Damon's mouth tightened at this affront. Balthazar had a half-bemused expression on his face. He had expected nothing less. Councillor Devonus stood before Damon, hands on his hips, mouth set into a thin line of dislike and disbelief. He was not impressed. My goodness, the old goat is truly in denial, Balthazar mused. I have seen many things in my years. A few special effects. Do not fool me, you fraud, Councillor Devonus stated calmly. No, Councillor Devonus. You simply are a fool who cannot see the truth. Damon allowed his mind voice to boom into all of their minds, including the councillors. He has the power of Eiros too, another called out in exultation. He's one of us as well. Balthazar could be doing that, Councillor Devonus shouted. His face purpled with rage that people could be so easily gulled. His mind flared with the injustice of it. Damon could see his frustrations over the years. The Order had always been a scam, but vampires were just as credulous as humans, and it had been useful to keep most of them cowed and docile. Councillor Devonus had never believed himself, which was why he didn't think Damon or Eiros were actually real, no matter what he was seeing at the moment. The vampires' origins were more lost than their human counterparts were, but the past didn't matter. Only the future did. And now that the Order had been routed, no matter by who, the Council could finally take its rightful place as the true rulers of vampire kind. But Damon and Balthazar were getting in the way of that. He would do anything to stop this. Martin, you really shouldn't have said that to him. He's been quite patient with all of us non-believers so far, but I don't think you should ask for more of a dog and pony show. Balthazar warned as he motioned his people away from him and the councillor. Balthazar was already keeping the personal guard outside and away from harm. Damon leaned his head back, fangs out, and let his form ripple. Not wolves this time. No, something that flew. He thought of Julian, and immediately he transformed into a murder of crows, black shiny wings, brilliant glittering eyes, sharp beaks. He was 100 strong. There were gasps of amazement, both external and internal. The Eiros believed. Councillor Devonus staggered back as Damon had the crows fly as one. He circled Ravenscroft Manor, then he flew over the heads of the crowd. The crows showed him hundreds of images that he formed into one view. The Eiros reached up for him as if to brush their fingers against his wings. It's Damon. It's King Damon. He's returned. Our king has returned. We're saved. We are transformed. He will kill us all for what we've done. A small voice whispered through the crowd. Our Kali followers. Damon realized, and marked the people whose voices echoed that for later. Then he swept back to Councillor Devonus, and he dive-bombed the vampire. His personal guard stood dumbly, unable to move or react in any way as Balthazar held these vampires who were 3 times his age. Damon was not the only one who noticed this. The crowd of Eiros did too. They knew the skill he was showing. Councillor Devonus crouched low as the ground as his beaks pecked at the vampire's flesh, leaving hundreds of cuts that would not heal until he allowed them to. He transformed once more into his humanoid form. The wings of the birds became feathered rather than his fur coat. He gracefully sank down onto his haunches in front of the quivering Councillor Devonus. He put his fingers under the man's bleeding chin and forcefully lifted his head until they were eye to eye. Councillor Devonus was shaking. The truth was in his eyes. The fool would be affronted later, but for now, he was just afraid. Damon used the mirror's gift to show Councillor Devonus just how pathetic he looked at that moment. The councillor gasped and tried to draw back from his own battered and bloody visage, but Balthazar had a hold of his mind and kept him there. He walked up behind Damon to look down at Councillor Devonus. "There was a time," Balthazar said softly, "when I wanted his regard, my king. I hope you can forgive me for that shortcoming. You wished to be a part of vampire society, Iros. You need to apologize for nothing, my friend," Damon said just as softly, but all heard. And then Damon used Armageddon to take Councillor Devonus's immortality away. There was just a rushing wind through the trees for a moment to note its occurrence, but the change in the scent of his blood told everyone in that crowd what they needed to know. Councillor Devonus was now human. "Bring his former guards over, Iros," Damon requested as he shifted back to his own form. The personal guards frog-marched over to them like little tin soldiers all in a line. "You will take Martin back to the other councillors," Damon told them, his voice even and low. "You will tell them that this is what awaits them if they go up against me. If they wish to join us, they will act with respect to myself and Iros, or they will find me less than hospitable." Balthazar let out a laugh. "Oh, this is so much better than I imagined, my king." Mephi let out a satisfied meow. Join us next time for episode 93, On Your Knees.
If you want to support this podcast and get the unedited episodes, we actually have something better than a Patreon. I have my own serial subscription website, wraithrain.com. It's an old-fashioned paywall site, just like Netflix or Crunchyroll. With a membership, you do get the uncut versions of Everdark with no intros, outros, or edited parts. Just the chapters as they were meant to be heard before we've had to make it all Disney safe. If this sounds interesting to you, try us out for a month. The link to sign up is in the notes. The most you'll pay is $9.95 a month, and you'll be directly supporting us, real people, not big corporations like Amazon or Netflix, not content created with AI. Wraith Rain is a small team of actual humans doing the best we can to transport you with romantic action and adventure stories. We really thank you for your support.